Shalom Israel, grace and blessings from God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ be unto you. All praises to the Most High that we made it another week, to another Sabbath day. And of course we do all things in the name of His Son, His Word, Jesus the Christ, by His Holy Ghost. But yeah, we're getting at that time of year where it is already the Sabbath. By the time we start streaming on these Friday night lessons, all praises to the Most High for that. As they say, time keeps on slipping into the future, right? But with that, I am going to check and make sure everything's functioning properly before we officially get underway. Let me check YouTube real quick. How are we looking on YouTube? Properly before we officially get underway. Let me check YouTube real quick. Yeah, YouTube is doing all right. Let's see about Facebook. Facebook should be good too if YouTube is. Yeah, so Facebook's looking good too. I already turned my phone on silent. So before we get started, there are several things that I've seen this week that are somewhat newsworthy. Other things that I've seen that are interesting to me, probably not interesting to anybody else. But one of the things that I just seen when looking for things to talk about tonight, and we may get to some, we may not get to others. But one thing that I did see is Trump is calling for peace between the state of Israel and Hamas. He basically has to tell OBB Milikowski, hey, look, stop bombing the hell out of them because we're trying to broker some peace here, trying to get a good look. And yeah, we'll see where that goes. What's more likely is that they'll call for a ceasefire, and then immediately the state of Israel is just going to keep bombing Gaza. That's probably what's going to happen. But hey, I could be proven wrong, right? It's happened before; it can happen again. But they are trying to take Gaza fully, and I imagine that's going to have to be a part of the deal. Is that the state of Israel can just own and buy property in Gaza. And Hamas is just going to have to accept that. And if they don't, they probably won't get very far in terms of peace deals. Because if they don't accept the deal, they're just going to take it by force, which they have been doing anyway. So we'll see where that goes. I don't necessarily think that's going to go very far. But yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and bring this camera down. I can go ahead and bring that down. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I've seen that I want to touch on that I'm not going to talk about. I don't think so. I think that's just about it. I was scrolling through some things. I did see this thing, and this may be like a long time ago, but this guy, I forget his name, Ricky Dearman, I forget his name, but this a guy who was accused by his wife of being, like a satanic type guy over there in the UK. And yeah, we know that type of stuff goes on. She was saying that he was like abusing the family and things like that. I haven't seen much of that. I haven't seen much, looking into that. But that type of stuff does go on. We talked about Michael Aquino on here a few weeks ago, as far as like in high-ranking positions, there are like Satanists and satanic things going on. And speaking of that, Chris Hansen just did an interview. I think he just did this interview with Vlad, where they were talking about what Peter Nygaard's been up to. And while that has never been confirmed to be out and out satanic, it's pretty evil stuff. So we'll go ahead and jump into the lesson. The first thing I want to talk about is this earthquake that hit the Philippines. There was a 6.9 in the middle of the Philippines, because the Philippines is a group of islands, and I think it was like right in the water. Maybe it hit somewhere on one of the islands, but it said this is the Associated Press. It said rescuers desperately search for survivors of earthquake in the Philippines that killed at least 72. Right, so it's a big earthquake. And those are some pictures. I guess we can look at some photos. Right, you have some body bags there. You have a BOGO in the Philippines that was seemed to be wrecked pretty bad. Um, let's see, that's somebody hiding. I'm not gonna play any videos necessarily. Um, yeah, that's some a damaged woman. That's some rubble. They're trying to. It appears that there probably were some people trapped under that rubble that they're trying to rescue. There's that saying. Well, it's a photo from the video that it was showing earlier. Um, there's more rubble, more wreckage, and of course, those are crying and mourning family members, more than likely. Yeah, it says people grieve after identifying the body of a victim outside Cebu Provincial Hospital in Bogo City. All right, so it appears Bogo City probably got it the worst, and there is the body bag, or the body bags, I should say. All right, yeah, very, very devastating stuff. It says Bogo in the Philippines, rescuers used backhoes and sniffer dogs to look for survivors in collapsed houses and other damaged buildings in the central Philippines after an earthquake killed at least 72 people and injured more than 200 others. The death toll was expected to rise from the 6.9 magnitude quake that hit about 10 p.m. on Tuesday. Wow, see, I didn't know it happened that far earlier this week. I thought it happened in the past couple days. And trapped an unspecified number of residents in the hard-hit city of Bogo and outlying rural towns in the Cebu province. See, I don't know anybody specifically from Bogo or from Cebu, but there's I know there's people in the Philippines that watch this stream that I do. So keep your thoughts and prayers for these brothers and sisters that's going through this. It said, let's see, they hit about 10 p.m. Tuesday and trapped an unspecified number of residents in the hard-hit city of Bogo and outlying rural towns in the Cebu province. Sporadic rain and damaged bridges and roads have hampered the race to save lives. Right. So as I said, damaged bridges, and there's always, when it comes to earthquakes, especially of this magnitude, there's always like damaged infrastructure. It's at a dangerous quake. On Wednesday night, rescuers in orange and yellow hard hats used spotlights, a backhoe, and bare hands to sift through the rubble of concrete slabs, broken wood, and twisted iron bars for hours in a collapsed building in Bogo City. No survivor was found. Right, so that building was so damaged that it would seem that the way they phrased this sentence makes it seem like they found people, but nobody survived it. We're still in the golden hour of our search and rescue. Office of Civil Defense Deputy Administrator Bernardo Rafaelito Alejandro IV said in a Wednesday morning news briefing in Manila, the country's capital. There are still many reports of people who were pinned or hit by debris. Let's see. So we just looked at a photo similar to this, if not that same photo. The earthquake occurred at a dangerously shallow depth of 5 kilometers or 3 miles and was centered about 19 kilometers, 12 miles, northeast of Bogo, a coastal city of about 90,000 people in Cebu province, where officials reported about half of the known deaths. Right, so I'm trying to think of an American city with an equivalent number of people. I think that's a little less than Tallahassee. I could be mistaken, but I think Tallahassee has like 100,000 people or something like that. The Philippine government is considering whether to seek help from foreign governments based on an ongoing rapid damage assessment, Alejandro said. Workers were trying to transport a backhoe to hasten search and rescue efforts in a cluster of shanties in a mountain village hit by a landslide and boulders. Bogo City Disaster Mitigation Officer Rex Ego told the Associated Press early on Wednesday, right? So trying to get the emergency vehicles into the town, into the city. It's hard to move in the area because there are hazards, said Glenn Ursall, another disaster mitigation officer, who added that some survivors were brought to a hospital from the mountain village. Deaths also were reported from the outlying towns of Medellin and San Remigio, where 3 Coast Guard personnel, a firefighter, and a child were killed separately by collapsing walls and falling debris while trying to flee to safety from a basketball game in a sports complex that was disrupted by the quake, town officials said. Yeah, so that's and we seen that photo earlier. The earthquake was one of the most powerful to batter the central region in more than a decade, and it struck while many people slept or were at home. Right, so it must have been in the middle of the night over there. As I said, 10 p.m. Right. The Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology briefly issued a tsunami warning and advised people to stay away from the coastlines of Cebu and the nearby provinces of Leyte and Biliran. But the warning was lifted within hours with no waves reported. Still, thousands of traumatized residents refused to return home and chose to stay in open grassy fields and parks overnight despite intermittent rains. Yeah, so open grassy fields seems to be the best place to be in earthquakes. Cebu and other provinces were still recovering from a tropical storm that battered the central region on Friday, leaving at least 27 people dead, mostly due to drownings and falling trees, knocking out power in entire cities and towns and forcing the evacuation of tens of thousands of people. All right, so they are getting it heavy over there. The Philippines, they are getting it heavy from the Most High, because these are like straight up natural disasters, right? I don't know if it's going to mention it here, but the Philippines is in what's known as the Ring of Fire over there in the Pacific, with volcanic activity, earthquake type activity, but with cyclones as well. Adding to it, it's crazy. Yeah, knocking out power in entire cities and towns and forcing the evacuation of tens of thousands of people. So let's see, a man injured in the earthquake outside the hospital. He's been bandaged up on October 1st. And those are the body bags that we was talking about earlier. Schools and government offices were closed in the quake-hit cities and towns while the safety of buildings were checked. More than 600 aftershocks have been detected after Tuesday night's tremblor. Trembler. I thought it was tremor or temblor. Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology Director Teresito Bacalcal said, rain-soaked mountainsides were more susceptible to land and mudslides in a major earthquake, he warned. This was really traumatic to people. They've been lashed by a storm, then jolted by an earthquake, Bacalcal said. I don't want to experience what they've gone through. The Philippines, one of the world's most disaster-prone countries, is often hit by earthquakes and volcanic eruptions due to its location on the Pacific Ring of Fire. Yeah, there it goes. An arc of seismic faults around the ocean. The archipelago is also lashed by about 20 typhoons and storms each year. Right. So in a particular area known for being disaster prone, so to speak. All right. So we'll just go through a few scriptures on this real quick concerning what's going on here. Because if we believe the Most High is the Almighty, then we have to believe that His hand is in all things. You know, it's not just the good things that He does; it's the bad things as well. All right, and there is always a reason for these things, and it's not like a mysterious, vague reason either. All right. Amos 3, I'm going to jump down and then jump back up to the point here. All right. So, Amos 3 and verse 6, it says, shall a trumpet be blown in the city, meaning alarms, and the people not be afraid? Shall there be evil in a city, and the Lord hath not done it? So is there anything that happened, especially when it comes to like natural disasters, and is there anything that could have happened that's bad that the Most High didn't do it? No, there's nothing that you could say that the Almighty didn't do, because He's the Almighty. He's all powerful. At the very least, He okayed whatever, right? When you read the book of Job, that's talking about like temptation when it comes to men. But this is even something different than that. Verse 7, surely the Lord God will do nothing, but He revealeth His secret unto His servants the prophets. Surely the Lord God will do nothing, but He revealeth His secret unto His servants the prophets. As in, the Lord is not going to step down and help these people literally, right? But He'll reveal His secrets to his servants, the prophets. So why would he do something like this, as far as like hit them with a cyclone and then immediately come back through and hit them with the earthquake this bad, right? Hear this word that the Lord has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, all the 12 tribes. All the 12 tribes have been scattered around the world in the modern day. And one of those tribes, the tribe of Issachar, which over here in the east, that's the Mexicans, but over here in the west, it's the Mexicans, but over in the east, where the Philippines where the Filipinos are, that would be the same tribe. Because whenever you read history, and I went over this when talking about the Trans-Pacific slave trade not too long ago, when talking about the 12 tribes of Israel not too long ago, I spoke on how the Spaniards would take Mexicans and ship them on slave ships to the Philippines, and vice versa. They would take Filipino people, ship them on slave ships to Mexico. So the people are really intermixed at this point. There's the tribe of Issachar over in the east, in the Filipino lands, Filipino islands, and the tribe of Issachar in the west, in the country of Mexico. So that's one of the tribes of the Israelites. Verse 2. So here's the point. You only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. Right? So why the Filipino people going through it is because God is trying to call them back to him. All right? Another one of the prophets, Hosea 5 and 15. All right? It's for the iniquities. All right? It's for the iniquities and the reconciliation. All right? That's what it's all about. In Hosea 5 and verse 15, it says, I will go and return to my place. I'm not going to prevent any of these natural disasters. I'm not going to prevent any of this suffering that's going on till they acknowledge their offense and seek my face. In their affliction, they will seek me early. Right? So for a long time, the Filipino people have, first of all, they had the Spaniards come against them and then, enslave them. Then later they had the Americans come through and liberate them, so to speak, but really give them a different type of persecution. And even on into the modern day, they have that dichotomy of like China coming in trying to influence things and America coming in trying to influence things. All right. And even during World War II, they had Japan take over the whole Filipino islands and even go further south in the Pacific. But so you have all these different influences, and the Filipino people, they just need to return to the heritage that God gave them as far as the culture of the Israelites. They're over there doing all sorts of like eating pork. They're doing all sorts of like eating dog, eating all sorts of unclean foods. They're following Christianity for the most part, Catholicism, right? So they need to come out of that, come back to what the scriptures say to do, all right? So that's what it's all about. But also, being in the last days, I do just want to point out Isaiah 29 real quick. As far as these natural disasters are concerned, I believe it's Isaiah 29, if I'm not mistaken. Isaiah 29, and where is it at? So here it is, in verse 6. It says, Thou shalt be visited of the Lord of hosts with thunder and with earthquake. Right? Is that not what happened? They had that cyclone come through and then they had that earthquake. And great noise with storm and tempest, right? That's that cyclone. And the flame of devouring fire, right? You can see these wildfires going on around the world, all right? So also, Nahum, I think it's Nahum 1 and 3, if I'm not mistaken. Nahum 1 and verse 3. It says, the Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and will not at all acquit the wicked. Understand that thing. Everybody's going to receive judgment. Whether you're going to receive the rewards for doing good, or whether you're going to receive the punishment for doing evil, regardless. Everyone is going to receive judgment, especially the wicked. All right? The Lord hath his way in the whirlwind and in the storm. right? So that would be that cyclone. The clouds are the dust of his feet, right? So understand that. That's one of the ways that the Lord is going to rebuke places, right? With his storms, as we read in Isaiah 29. He also does it with earthquakes. He does it with wildfires, all right? But also earthquakes. We read this scripture every time that there's earthquakes going on because it was prophesied by our Lord, all right? By our Lord, the Messiah, Jesus the Christ, in Matthew 24 and verse, and we probably won't get to this part about Madagascar, being seditious, just like pretty much every other country right now. It has like some kind of like uprising, have some sort of rebellion, has some sort of sedition going on in it. Madagascar has that as well. But that would be, as it says in verse 6 here, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, so that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. All right, so we hear of all these seditions, we hear of all these wars taking place. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places, right? There's more earthquakes now than there's ever been in the history of the world, all right? They're happening all the time, every day. There's earthquakes going on. And usually there's like a 6 or higher, which is a crazy magnitude, which is like a damaging earthquake, like every week, which is just completely unheard of. But notice what he said in verse 8. All these are the beginning of sorrows. And that's what I wanted to point out to people. Because they was talking about, I believe I touched on this. Maybe I touched on this last week or the week before. But they was talking about how, I do remember actually talking about this last week. That, we know Christ's going to come back on September the 23rd, September the 24th, or whatever, September 22nd, whatever they were saying. They were saying, we know exactly when Christ is going to come back. Y'all get ready. And of course, he didn't come back then. As I've been saying for weeks and weeks and weeks, I've been trying to stress to y'all that these are the beginning of sorrows. We're only in the beginning of sorrows. All right. So we got at least a few more years left. All right. And things are going to get worse before they get better. We see how things are just escalating as far as like how they're getting worse and worse and worse. We're in the beginning of sorrows. We're at this point right here, what he's talking about. All right? We're in the famines, the pestilences, the earthquakes, the kingdom against kingdom, nation against nation, wars and rumors of wars. That's where we're at now. All right? And if we move past that, I'll let you know once we get to that point. Lord's will. I'll be able to recognize it. But I think we'll all be able to recognize it if you read the scriptures. But with that being said, let's go ahead and move on to, I guess this would be considered the main story of the week. Or at least what I want to cover. And this is actually a couple weeks ago. This said September the 30th. This transcript came out September the 30th. This meeting, I think this meeting was actually sometime last week. But Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, right? He had this, he called this meeting, as it says here, and by the way, this is the U.S. Department of War.gov, all right? So this is an official website of the U.S. government, right? So this is not some, I don't know if y'all like think that I only use like liberal sources or like leftist sources or whatever, but I was starting to kind of feel that way that like, I try to use the most objective sources. Like I think AP and Reuters are some of the most objective sources out there. Al Jazeera is not necessarily objective, but they talk about international topics, whereas American media usually will not, at least certain issues. But I feel like anybody who's like super right wing would look at that and say, oh, he's only using like liberal sources or whatever. So no, this is officially the, as it says up here, war.gov. This is the U.S. Department of War's website. All right. This is the transcript from that meeting that Pete Hegseth called. There's a couple things that I want to hit on specifically in here, but I don't know if we're going to read this whole thing because it's very long. But we might. It just depends on what kind of time we have on it. But he addresses all the general and flag officers at Quantico, Virginia. I forget when this meeting was though. It was I think it was last week. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Mr. Chairman, the Joint Chiefs, Generals, Admirals, Commanders, Officers, Senior Enlisted, NCOs, Enlisted, and every member of our American military, good morning. And people say good morning. Good morning and welcome to the War Department because the era of the Department of Defense is over. You see, the motto of my first platoon was those who long for peace must prepare for war. This, of course, got not a new idea. This crowd knows that. The origin dates to 4th century Rome. It has been repeated ever since. See, I didn't even know he said that. I didn't even know he said that, but it really just goes to the point of what I knew this meeting was about, because I've heard things from this meeting, and I'll point out later on down something specifically that calls back to they want to be Rome again. They want to re-energize, they want to revitalize, they want to make America Rome again. All right? That's what the meeting is really about. Trying to relive the glory days of Rome. It's kind of odd that he actually quoted 4th century Rome, though. That's interesting. Probably because the 4th century Rome is when it became Christian. And by Christian, I mean pagan Christian. All right? And has been repeated ever since, including by our first commander-in-chief, George Washington, the first leader of the War Department. It captures a simple yet profound truth: to ensure peace, we must prepare for war. And while just this whole administration is stupid, I just want to point that out. And it's not a new thing. America has pretty much always been stupid, at least since I've been around. But just this idea that he's trying to describe the quote, and he uses the quote in that description. It's pretty crazy. From this moment forward, the only mission of the newly restored Department of War is this: war fighting, preparing for war, and preparing to win, unrelenting and uncompromising in that pursuit. Not because we want war. No one here wants war. Yeah, right. But it's because we love peace. We love peace for our fellow citizens. See, this reminds me of Peacemaker, right? That show Peacemaker that John Cena's in. James Gunn directs it. Where it was in the... can I even say the title of that movie without YouTube taking me down? I don't know. The Suicide Squad movie, where John Cena said, I love peace so much that I'm willing to kill every man, woman, and children to get it, right? Every man, woman, and child to get it. I don't care how many it takes, right? So like that's what this quote is really echoing for me, right? He's like, oh, we don't want war, we want peace, and we'll go to war how much ever we need to get peace. Like, it's crazy. They deserve peace, and they rightfully expect us to deliver. Our number one job, of course, is to be strong so that we can prevent war in the first place. The president talks about it all the time. It's called peace through strength. And as history teaches us, the only people who actually deserve peace are those willing to wage war to defend it. So, like, he's really just reiterating, like, the Teddy Roosevelt philosophy. Why didn't he reference that? You know what I'm saying? If he's referencing, like, history, reference Teddy Roosevelt, which is speak softly but carry a big stick, right? So it pretty much says the same thing. It's just like I said, the stupidity of America. Like, they don't even understand their own history. That's why pacifism is so naive and dangerous. It ignores human nature and it ignores human history. Either you protect your people and your sovereignty, or you will be subservient to something or someone. It's a truth as old as time. And I know why they don't want to use that slogan as far as speak softly but carry a big stick, is because they don't want to speak softly. They want to speak like Satan. And since waging war is so costly in blood and treasure, we owe our republic a military that will win any war we choose, or any war that is thrust upon us. Should our enemies choose foolishly to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department. In other words, to our enemies, I don't know what FAFO means. Oh, okay, I know what F around and find out. That's what it means. And somebody said, fantastic. All right, so this must just be like an audience member who is like, this transcript was probably captured like by AI, if I had to guess. And when it says unknown here, this is just like an audience member sitting next to the camera or something, if I had to guess. Because, I mean, if it was like actually transcribed by a person, they wouldn't say unknown right here, I don't think. I think they would say crowd member or audience. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, I could be wrong about that. If necessary, our troops can translate that for you. With the FAFO? Yeah. Another way to put it is peace through strength, brought to you by the warrior ethos, and we are restoring both. As President Trump has said, and he's right, we have the strongest, most powerful, most lethal, and most prepared military on the planet. That is true, full stop. Nobody can touch us. It's not even close. Which I don't know if that's true anymore. It seems like China has a better military and even better weaponry. This is true largely because of the historic investments that he made in his first term, and we will continue in this term, and will continue in this term. But it's also true because of the leaders in this room and the incredible troops that you all lead. But the world, and as the chairman mentioned, our enemies get a vote. You feel it, I feel it. And it's actually very funny because I remember seeing a video. This is from a while ago, but it's like a former, I don't know if it's special agent, a former troop, a former lieutenant, I forget who it was, former sergeant, reacting to like American soldiers posting TikToks, and he's like, this shit's really allowed, pardon my French, but he's like, this is really allowed in the military, like you wouldn't be getting away with this stuff in the military I served in. You know, like that kind of thing. So like talking about the soldiers that serve, yeah, the incredible troops that you all lead, like come on now. No, they're not the men that they used to be. This is a moment of urgency, mounting urgency, enemies gather, threats grow. There is no time for games, right? Enemies gather. And we talk about that all the time as far as the Most High gathering the nations to the Valley of Jehoshaphat, to Armageddon. We talk about that all the time. In prophecy, all right, it is coming. It is coming. It is coming. It is imminent. All right, threats grow. There is no time for games. We must be prepared. If we're going to prevent and avoid war, we must prepare now. We are the strength part of peace through strength. We're the strength part of peace through strength. And either we're ready to win or we are not. You see, this urgent moment of course, this urgent moment of course requires more troops, more munitions, more drones, more patriots, more submarines, more B-21 bombers. It requires more innovation, more AI in everything. And ahead of the curve, more cyber effects, more counter UAS, more space, more speed. The more AI in everything is pretty crazy. Especially if you know like what role the AI is going to play in all of this. It's actually going to, I mean, if you're accelerationist, in a way I am, you know, I want the Lord to return as quickly as possible, as soon as possible. But yeah, the whole idea of everything getting worse before it gets better, it certainly involves that AI. America is the strongest, but we need to get stronger and quickly. Why do you need to get stronger if you're already the strongest, right? And why do you need to do it quickly? The time is now, and the cause is urgent. The moment requires restoring and refocusing our defense industrial base, our shipbuilding industry, and onshoring all critical opponents. It requires, as President Trump has done, getting our allies and partners to step up and share the burden. America cannot do everything. Why? If you're the greatest country in the world and you're so far ahead of everybody, why can't you do everything? It's the whole, you know, we're strong but we're weak, and the enemy is strong but they're weak, you know, like that whole fascist mentality. The free world requires allies with real hard power, real military leadership, and real military capabilities. The War Department is tackling and prioritizing all of these things. And I'll be giving a speech next month that'll showcase the speed, innovation, and general acquisition reforms we are undertaking urgently. Likewise, the nature of the threats we face in our hemisphere and in deterring China is another speech for another day, coming soon. Is this going to be like a monthly thing that he starts doing, these speeches? More than likely, if it is, I will not be covering them every month, but we'll talk about them every now and again. Let's see. Likewise, the nature of the threats we face in our hemisphere and in deterring China is another speech for another day, coming soon. Okay, I just read that. This speech today, as I drink my coffee, this speech today is about people and it's about culture. The topic today is about the nature of ourselves, because no plan, no program, no reform, no formation will ultimately succeed unless we have the right people and the right culture at the War Department. See, this is the whole going back to Rome thing that he kind of referenced earlier in the speech, but he's going to get more specific on that. If I've learned one core lesson in my eight months in this job, it's that personnel is policy. Personnel is policy. The best way to take care of troops is to give them good leaders, committed to the warfighting culture of the department. Not perfect leaders, good leaders. Competent, qualified, professional, agile, aggressive, innovative, risk-taking, apolitical, faithful to their oath and to the Constitution. Yeah, he does not really believe apolitical. He don't believe that. And he kind of goes on to stress, That on down as well. Let's see. Eugene Sledge, in his World War II memoir wrote, "War is brutish, inglorious, and a terrible waste. Combat leaves an indelible mark on those who are forced to endure it. The only redeeming factors are my comrades, are my comrades' incredible bravery and their devotion to each other. In combat, there are thousands of variables, as I learned in Iraq and Afghanistan, and so many of you did in so many more places. Leaders can only control about 3 of them. You control how well you're trained, mostly how well you're equipped, and the last variable is how well you lead. After that, you're on your own. Our warfighters are entitled to be led by the best and most capable leaders. That is who we need you all to be. Even then, in combat, even if you do everything right, you may still lose people because the enemy always gets a vote. We have a sacred duty to ensure that our warriors are led by the most capable and qualified combat leaders. This is one thing you and I can control, and we owe it to the force to deliver. For too long, we have simply not done that. The military has been forced by foolish and reckless politicians to focus on the wrong things." Pot and kettle, huh? In many ways, this speech is about fixing decades of decay. Some of it obvious, some of it hidden. Or as the chairman has put it, we are cleaning out the debris, removing the distractions, clearing the way for leaders to be leaders. You might say we're ending the war on warriors. I heard someone wrote a book about that. Was that a reference to something? Because I don't get it. For too long, we promoted too many uniformed leaders for the wrong reasons, based on their race, based on gender quotas, based on historic so-called first. Again, so he's talking about apolitical, yet he's bringing up, politicisms. We pretended that combat arms and non-combat arms are the same thing. We've weeded out so-called toxic leaders under the guise of double-blind psychology assessments promoting risk-averse, go along to get along, conformist instead. You name it, the department did it. I don't know how woke the Army has ever really been. He's saying the Army's been woke under Biden, under Obama. But was it really? The people that were just drone striking Pakistani weddings, were they really super woke? I don't think so. Foolish and reckless political leaders set the wrong compass heading, and we lost our way. We became the woke department, and he literally says the thing. But not anymore. Right now, I'm looking out at a sea of Americans who made a choice when they were young men and young women to do something most Americans will not, to serve something greater than yourself, to fight for God and country, for freedom and the Constitution. So, first of all, God and the Constitution are 100 and 1,000% antithetical to each other, right? Because the Constitution, the First Amendment, calls for the freedom of religion. God obviously does not. All right, he don't want you to be Hindu. He does not want you to be Buddhist or even Muslim or Christian or Jewish for that matter. All right, he wants you to come back to him as his people, right, as the Israelites. All right, and wants you to serve him. He wants you to just serve him, right, without any religion, right? Pure religion, as James said, is to feed the fatherless and the widow, right? Help the fatherless and the widow. You made a choice to serve when others did not. You made a choice to serve when others did not, and I commend you. You are truly the best of America. But this does not mean, and this goes for all of us, that our path to this auditorium on this day was a straight line, or that the conditions of the formations we lead are where we want them to be. You love your country, and we love this uniform, which is why we must do better. We just have to be honest. We have to say with our mouths we have to say with our mouths what we see with our eyes, to just tell it like it is in plain English, to point out the obvious things right in front of us. That's what leaders must do. We cannot go on another day without directly addressing the plank in our own eye, without addressing the problems in our own commands and in our own formations, right? So they're trying to root out people that are not loyal. And that's really what it's going into. Hey, if you see any woke BS, call it out. Get it out of here. This administration has done a great deal from day one to remove the social justice, politically correct, and toxic ideological garbage that had infected our department, to rip out the politics. So rip out the bad politics, but keep the good politics. That's basically what he's going into. Hey, keep our politics, but get rid of the left-leaning politics, basically. No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. Nope. Yeah, like Rudy Giuliani was in that commercial with Donald Trump back in the day where he was in a dress and Donald Trump was motorboating, right? No more of that. That's gay. Oh man. No more. No. Oh man. No more climate change or worship. Okay. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris, right? So yeah, this is literally just. He said be apolitical, which is mind blowing that he goes on and just immediately contradicts himself and say, hey, get rid of all the left wing stuff. As I've said before and will say again, we are done with that shit. And that's a direct quote. So y'all can't get mad at me. That's what Hegseth said. I've made it my mission to uproot the obvious distractions that made us less capable and less lethal. That said, the War Department requires the next step. Underneath the woke garbage is a deeper problem and a more important problem that we are fixing and fixing fast. Common sense is back at the White House, so making the necessary changes is actually pretty straightforward. President Trump expects it, and the litmus test for these changes is pretty simple. Would I want my eldest son, who is 15 years old, eventually joining the types of formations that we are currently wielding? If in any way the answer to that is no, or even yes, but then we're doing something wrong. Because my son is no more important than any other American citizen who dons the cloth of our nation. He is no more important than your son, all precious souls made in the image and likeness of God. Every parent deserves to know that their son or their daughter that joins our ranks is entering exactly the kind of unit that the Secretary of War would want his son to join. Think of it as the golden rule test. Jesus said, do unto others that which you would have done unto yourself. It's the ultimate simplifying test of truth, which is hilarious for a military to think. All right? I mean, it would be one thing if it was the righteous army of God who thought that way and does not want any kind of war with anybody, right? So, like, that's one thing. But the U.S. military saying that is absolutely hilarious. Do unto others what you would have them do unto yourself. That's insane that the U.S. military would say that with all the things they've done, even since the year 2000. Just like, it's mind-boggling. Trump is like literally blowing up boats. Like J.D. Vance said that I wouldn't even want to be a fisherman right now in the Caribbean, the way that these boats are getting blown up. Like, it's crazy that they would even say something like this. The new War Department golden rule is this: do unto your unit as you would have done unto your own child's unit. Would you want him serving with fat or unfit or undertrained troops, or alongside people who can't meet basic standards, or in a unit where standards were lowered so certain types of troops could make it in a unit where leaders were promoted for reasons other than merit, performance, and warfighting? The answer is not just no, it's hell no. Right? So, I don't know. Maybe there are certain units where standards were lowered, but the Navy SEALs never lowered their standards. Like, for example, like, there's no female Navy SEALs because women just physically can't meet the standards, or at least that's what I've heard. Of course, I'm not a Navy SEAL myself. I don't know what the what the standards are, but just like physical requirements have not been lowered as far as I can tell. This means that the War Department, first and foremost, we must restore a ruthless, dispassionate, and common sense application of standards. I don't want my son serving alongside troops who are out of shape, or in combat unit with females who can't meet the same combat arms physical standards as men, or troops who are not fully proficient on their assigned weapons platform or task under a leader who was the first but not the best. And yeah, this is really ultimately a response to like when the Chinese released their propaganda video about their army. So America's like, you see what the Chinese are doing? We got to get even better than that. Anyway, standards must be uniform, gender neutral, and high. If not, they're not standards. He's got a point there. That standards got to be high, and if they're not, then they're not standards. They're just suggestions that get our sons and daughters killed. And I do just want to say that, yeah, he wants to restore, Rome, essentially. He wants to, it's this fascist idea of like going back to a mythical past. But yeah, I mean, he's trying to preserve his kingdom. I don't necessarily blame him on that front. We just got to see what this is. This is Babylon trying to ensure that Babylon survives longer, which is, directly against the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the Lord Jesus Christ. Because, I mean, that's what he's coming to destroy when he gets here. He's going to destroy Babylon on Judgment Day. That's the whole prophecy. When it comes to combat arms units, and there are many different stripes across our joint force, the era of politically correct, overly sensitive, don't hurt anyone's feelings leadership ends right now. He said, the facts don't care about your feelings, bro. At every level, either you can meet the standard, either you can do the job, either you are disciplined, fit, and trained, or you are out. That's why today at my direction, and this is the first of 10 Department of War directives that are arriving at your commands as we speak and in your inbox. Today at my direction, every service will ensure that every requirement for every combat MOS, for every designated combat arms position returns to the highest male standard only. Because this job is life or death, standards must be met, and not just met, at every level we should seek to exceed the standard, to push the envelope, to compete. It's common sense and core to who we are and what we do. It should be in our DNA, right? So he's got a point as far as like, hey, look, we should stop playing around with like letting women join the army. Because I mean, like you look at it historically, and it's always been men who fought. Just because men, generally speaking, are more physically fit than women, are more physically strong than women, have a larger frame than women, could protect people easier than women could. As I said, generally speaking, you're going to have your outliers or whatever. But so he's got a point there. Today at my direction, we are also adding a combat field test for combat arms units that must be executable in any environment at any time and with combat equipment. These tests, they'll look familiar. They'll resemble the Army Expert Physical Fitness Assessment or the Marine Corps Combat Fitness Test. I'm also directing that warfighters in combat jobs execute their service fitness test at a gender-neutral age, normed male standard scored above 70%. It all starts with physical fitness and appearance. The Secretary of War can do regular hard PT. I think that's physical training. So can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations or really any formation and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad. And it's not who we are. All right, so he said, look, we're not, well, I mean, it is what America is. Let's be real. America's a fat country. So, I mean, it's perfectly representative of America, but he said it shouldn't be. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. A height standard? Okay. All right. Whatever. I guess to know no short dudes in the military. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test, but today in my direction, every member of the joint force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year, every year of service. Also today at my direction, every warrior across our joint force is required to do PT every duty day. It should be common sense, and most units do that already, but we're codifying it. And we're not talking like hot yoga and stretching, real hard PT, and as either as a unit or as an individual. At every level, from the joint chiefs to everyone in this room to the youngest private, leaders set the standard. And so many of you do this already, active guard and reserve. This also means grooming standards. No more beards, long hair, superficial individual expression. We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to standards. Because it's like the broken windows theory in policing. It's like if you let the small stuff go, the big stuff eventually goes. So you have to address the small stuff. This is on duty in the field and in the rear. If you want a beard, you can join special forces. If not, then shave, right? Because like special forces has to do with like snipers, I suppose, and like people that like aren't trying to look like military personnel. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to keep reading about the beards, and then we're going to get into the scriptures. We don't have a military full of Nordic pagans, but unfortunately, we have had leaders who either refused to call BS and enforce standards, or leaders who felt like they were not allowed to enforce standards. Both are unacceptable. And that's why today at my direction, the era of unprofessional appearance is over. No more beardos. The era of rampant and ridiculous shaving profiles is done. Simply put, if you do not meet the male level physical standards for combat positions, cannot pass a PT test, or don't want to shave and look professional, it's time for a new position or a new profession. All right. Yes. We're only like halfway through the speech. So, yeah, I just wanted to get to the point about the shaving, right? Because when you read the scriptures, you can go into Leviticus 19 and 27, and I'll jump over a couple chapters as well where it says the same thing but in better terms, or in easier terms, I should say. Terms that are easier to understand. First, going to Leviticus chapter 19, and if you're not familiar with Leviticus chapter 19, I highly recommend you study and meditate on that chapter. It's one of those chapters that's one of the most important chapters in the entire Bible, I would say. Leviticus 19 really talks about basically everything that a nation of people needs to be righteous and holy in the eyes of God. All right. But what I want specifically here is Revelation 19 and 27. It says, "Ye shall not round the corners of your heads, neither shalt thou mar the corners of thy beard." So don't shave off the corner of your beard. Even mine comes in patchy, but I don't shave I don't shave it up. I don't shape it up. Trimming it is fine. I just said don't mar the corners, right? So don't cut off the corners of your beard, all right? How some people do the goatee and the Fu Manchu and all that kind of stuff. Mustaches and soul patches and whatnot. Also says don't round the corners of your heads because the people were coming out of Egypt, and that was the custom in Egypt to make bald on the side of your heads and maybe leave like one strand or whatever. And they would also go like clean bald, right? So let's go to Leviticus 21 and 5. Leviticus 21 and verse 5. Leviticus 21 and 5, it says, "They shall not make baldness upon their head, neither shall they shave off the corner of their beard, nor make any cuttings in their flesh." Right? So this is saying the same thing as far as don't shave off your beards. That's what the scriptures say. Right? But you had Pete Hegseth talking about, oh, we want to serve God. We want to do this for God and family and country and whatever. Yet God said, don't shave your beards off. He said, Pete Hegseth said the exact opposite. Shave your beards off. Right? And yes, Leviticus 21 is specifically talking to the priests, but the reason why I went to Leviticus 19 first is because that's talking to the whole nation. Right? So if you're an Israelite, you got to keep your beard. All right? But Pete Hegseth, he said, no, we're trying to root that out. We don't want Israelites in our military. All right? We want Romans, basically. He said, look, we don't want the Nordic pagans. We want to restore Rome. That's what they want. All right? With that being said, let's go to 2 Ezra chapter 11. Because they want to reignite that whole like Roman system, right? As far as the Roman military is venerated, is praised as being the greatest military that ever exists, right? Because they even consider Hannibal Barca one of the greatest generals that ever existed, who was a Carthaginian. But who was he defeated by? Rome. All right, he was defeated by Rome. It might have been the first Punic Wars, but I think it was the second Punic Wars. All right, but anyway, 2 Ezra 11, and starting with 37 here. "And I beheld, and lo, as it were a roaring lion, chased out of the wood. And I saw that he sent out a man's voice unto the eagle, and said," all right, so this is code, this is prophecy, this is coded language. It's broken down in the next chapter. This lion is Christ, it's the Son of God. This eagle is the fourth beast that was in Daniel, in his prophecies. All right, represents Rome, and then Rome ended up becoming the European colonies, right, all around the world, and then that built into America, right? That led to America, all right? Basically Esau in power. Hear thou, I will talk with thee, or excuse me, let me read this part again. I beheld, and lo, as it were a roaring lion, chased out of the wood, and I saw that he sent out a man's voice unto the eagle, and said, Hear thou, I will talk with thee, and the highest shall say unto thee, Art not thou it that remainest of the four beasts, whom I made to reign in my world, that the end of their times might come through them? See that right there? So it was all leading to the last days. It was all leading to the end of their times, right? The end of the times of those kingdoms, all right, of the worldly kingdoms. And the fourth came and overcame all the beasts that were past, and had power over the world with great fearfulness, and over the whole compass of the earth with much wicked oppression. And so long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit. Right, so when it comes to Rome, when you read Revelation 13, we may or may not get it. I don't think we will. But in Revelation 13, it talks about how the first beast received a deadly wound, but then it was healed. Right, as in Rome came back into power. All right, this happened through the Renaissance. All right, and so long time dwelt he upon the earth with deceit. For the earth hast thou not judged with truth. You see that right there. So that's the thing about Esau, and specifically going back to Rome, and the connection that, Rome is to America. Look, you have not judged the earth with truth. You have not reigned in righteousness. You have not reigned according to God, as Pete Hegseth is trying to put it. All right, doing it for God. You're not doing it for God. All right, you're not doing it for the truth. All right, you're doing it with much deceit. For thou hast afflicted the meek, thou hast hurt the peaceable, thou hast loved liars, and destroyed the dwellings of them that brought forth fruit, and hast cast down the walls of such as did thee no harm. Right? So going back to the founding of America, right? About breaking all the treaties with the Native Americans, right? As it said, cast down the walls of such as did thee no harm, right? The people who wanted peace, the people that you agreed to have peace with, and then boom, you go ahead and cast down their walls, take their land, right? But that same process of deceit and only wanting more and more war, that's been personified by America here in the I would say in the 20th century, right? Throughout the 1900s, that's what you saw with America, right? Originally in the 1900s, it was an isolationist policy, but that led to getting World War I and then later World War II. And since then, it's just been nonstop wars, right? It doesn't matter if people wanted peace or not. It was just nonstop wars. All right. Therefore is thy wrongful dealing come up unto the highest, and thy pride unto the mighty. Right. So as it says in Revelation 18, let me get that real quick, and we'll come back to that 2 Ezra 11. Because Revelation 18 specifically talking about Babylon. All right? Talking about Babylon the Great. All right? Revelation 18. Come on now. Revelation 18 and it said the pride of these people has come up to the mighty. All right? So, man, all of this is great. But I'll start with one and I'll read quickly. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Right? Because it's already written, Babylon will be destroyed. As it said, in God's eyes, it's already fallen. All right? And it says, and is become the habitation of devils. What do you think this AI is? All right, I've been telling y'all this is the conjuring of spirits. And guess what? When all this is burnt, when all them data processors are burnt, when this electronics, all this technology is burnt up, it's just going to release all these spirits. All right. But at that point, it's going to be too late for anybody anyway. It's just going to be, the land will be devastated. It will be turned into the lake of fire, so to speak. All right. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, all nations. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. Right? So that's heavy right there. I won't necessarily go into it, but an aspect of that would be your Maxwell Epstein things. All right. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. Right. This is the New York Stock Exchange. That's Wall Street. All right. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues." Right. So come out of her. Come out of her. Right. Not necessarily, you don't necessarily have to physically, but you definitely have to spiritually, and separate from the wickedness that's going on here. And I do just want to point this out real quick as far as when it said come out of her. I'll use the word separate. All right. I believe that 2 Corinthians chapter 6. Y'all bear with me for a second. 2 Corinthians. Let me see. Y'all bear with me 1 second. It said, "Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and receive not of her plagues." Right? Come out of her. And right here, it says, I want to just jump down to verse 17 here in 2 Corinthians chapter 6. "Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing." Right? So all your pork, your shrimp, crab, lobster, all that unclean things, right? Because there's unclean things there. There's being unclean sexually, those things. "And I will receive you, and will be a father unto you, and ye shall be my sons and my daughters, saith the Lord Almighty." Right? So be ye separate. Separate from them. Separate from these sins. Come out from among them. All right? Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, that you receive not of her plagues, for her sins have reached unto heaven. All right, I wanted to get to that point. As it said, "Therefore thy wrongful dealing come up unto the highest, and thy pride unto the mighty." All right, that's what 2 Ezra 11 is saying here. "For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities." All right. So, where's the part that's talking about fire? Verse 8 says, "Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine. And she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judgeth her." All right, so Babylon will be judged by fire. All right, by nuclear fire. All right. So it says, "The highest also had looked upon the proud times." We're in the proud times right now, the beginning of sorrows, the pride. All right. "And behold, they are ended, and his abominations are fulfilled." Right? So these sins, God is only going to take so much of this pride, of this foolishness, of this complete objection to him and his word, yet using his name to do so. All right? "And therefore appear no more, thou eagle, nor thy horrible wings, nor thy wicked feathers, nor thy malicious heads, nor thy hurtful claws, nor all thy vain body." Right? So any part of this kingdom, or any of the Edomite kingdoms, will not rule any longer. All right? It will only be the Israelite kingdom ruling on the earth, headed by the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the rightful heir to the seat of David, our Lord Jesus Christ. All right? "That all the earth may be refreshed, and may return, being delivered from thy violence, and that she may hope for the judgment and mercy of him that made her." All right? And then the next part goes into the judgment. "And it came to pass, while the lion spake these words unto the eagle, I saw, and behold, the head that remained in the four wings appeared no more. And the two went unto it, and set themselves up to reign, and their kingdom was small and full of uproar. I saw, and behold, they appeared no more. And the whole body of the eagle was burnt." Again, burnt with fire. That's what all the judgment says. That's what all the scriptures say concerning this place, whether it's Babylon the Great in Revelation 18, as we were reading, whether it's even the whore of Babylon and Mystery Babylon in Revelation 17, whether it's the daughter of Babylon in Isaiah 47, whether it's Babylon in Isaiah 13, all right, or whether it's the eagle here in 2 Ezra chapter 12, all right. It all talks about the same thing. This place being burned, all right. This place being burned with fire, nuclear fire, all right. Even in the book of Malachi, he said, "The day that burned like an oven." All right. And I saw, and behold, they appeared no more, and the whole body of the eagle was burnt, so that the earth was in great fear. Then awaked I out of the trouble and trance of my mind, and from great fear, and said unto my spirit, Lo, this hast thou done unto me, and that thou searchest out the ways of the highest. All right. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. We didn't get to the part about Madagascar and their sedition. And frankly, I don't want to read the rest of that transcript. I just wanted to get to the point where they're trying to restore Rome, essentially. That's what they want. They want to relive the glory days, so to speak. They're hearkening back to Rome as far as... that's how they want their army to appear, like the Romans did, just like New Age Romans. That's why they don't want beards, because the Romans didn't have beards. All right? And yes, it is specifically antagonistic to the Israelites who have beards. But I don't think, I sincerely don't even think that was in Pete Hegseth's mind, as far as like, well, the Bible says the Israelites have beards. We want to go directly against the Bible. I just think that's in his spirit naturally to go against God. I just think he's one of the embodiments of Esau. He's like, well, we love Rome. We loved how the Romans looked. That's how we want to look. All right. But anyway, Matthew 26, starting with verse 6. Now when Jesus was in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, there came unto him a woman having an alabaster box of very precious ointment, and poured it on his head as he sat at meat. But when his disciples saw it, they had indignation, saying, To what purpose is this waste? For this ointment might have been sold for much and given to the poor. When Jesus understood it, he said unto them, Why trouble ye the woman? For she hath wrought a good work upon me. For ye have the poor always with you, but me have not always. For in that she hath poured this ointment on my body, she did it for my burial. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached in the whole world, there shall also this that this woman have done be told for a memorial of her. So with that, hope y'all learned something. I'm going to say happy Sabbath, shalom, and let God be magnified.